We acknowledge that we live and work on the traditional lands of the Gunai Nation, and that sovereignty was never ceded. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging.
We acknowledge that we benefit from the colonial structures and policies that remain in place today. We stand in solidarity with First Nations people and recognise their ongoing struggles in dismantling those structures. This podcast is about a town on the edge. I bet you've heard that before. Well, what if we told you that this is about a town literally on the edge of the world's largest open-cut brown coal mine?
Hi, we're Steph and Josie, documentarians who live and work on Gunai land, aka the Latrobe Valley.
The valley, as it's known by locals, is just a 2-hour drive from Victoria's capital city of Melbourne. It's in the heart of the power industry for Victoria. Until recently, it provided 85% of the state's electricity via 3 coal-fired power stations.
These power stations are how one town, Morwell, ended up being right on the edge of the world's largest open-cut brown coal mine.
For a couple of teenagers in the 90s, it really wasn't a great place to grow up. We felt like rural industrial town Australia was not exactly a vibe. Growing up with the backdrop of rural decay and constantly closing businesses and no nightlife in sight, the best thing to do was sit in parks, drink, and get into trouble.
Witnessing rising unemployment, a growing reputation for crime and drug issues, and given that the best job prospects were working in the mines, there wasn't a lot keeping us here. We got out and moved to the big city as soon as we could.
Then life happened. After 10 years, we both found ourselves moving back to the valley. The place we once knew had changed. There were a lot of people putting in work to reimagine the identity of a place that had so often been overlooked.
The power stations, once the lifeblood of the area, were scheduled to close down and the mines to be decommissioned. Back in 2014, you might have heard of a little thing called the Hazelwood Mine Fire, a fire that lasted for 45 days and filled the air with toxic smoke. Well, that was our town.
That fire ended up being the subject of a judicial inquiry, which found that the community had experienced adverse health effects and could be affected indeterminately into the future. It also found that 11 premature deaths were attributed to the fire. The Hazelwood fire reignited discussions about how to rehabilitate the land. Turns out you can't just leave these giant, gaping open cuts on the land. They're actually susceptible to collapse and catching on fire.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you would know that climate change is one of the biggest challenges humanity is facing. With the viability of coal-powered energy in question, the valley and many other towns around the world are set to lose important parts of their economy and even bigger parts of their identity.
This issue doesn't just affect the valley. There are around 30,000 mine workers in the coal industry in Australia alone. We wanted to make a podcast to help make sense of all these moving parts. Where are we at as a nation? What exactly is the plan? And where do we go from here? Join us as we talk to the people of the valley about how they came to live here, how their identities are connected with the mines, and what the future of life after coal will mean for them.
During the First World War, strikes caused fuel shortages so severe that the Victorian government reopened the old brown coal mine near Morwell in the Latrobe Valley.
And the state government has outlined a long-term plan to ensure the Latrobe Valley remains viable as its economy moves away from coal-fired energy.
It's been the lifeblood of the Latrobe Valley for decades, but continual change in the power industry and the introduction of the carbon tax means it's time for a plan B.
It's a month tomorrow since fire entered the Hazelwood coal mine in Victoria's east.
Fire has been burning for weeks now, blanketing the township in a toxic smoke. The housing estates are literally just 50 metres away, so when the wind blows in the other direction, they take all of that in.
The guillotine has finally come down on Australia's dirtiest power station, Hazelwood. It's caused jitters about electricity prices and raised questions about Australia's readiness for a low-carbon future.
We're not going to achieve net zero in the cafes, dinner parties and wine bars of our inner cities.
The Latrobe Valley's coal mines could be filled with water and made into a tourist attraction to rival Italy's Lake Como.
This is Coalface. Good afternoon, fellow podcast listeners. I'd like to welcome all the ladies, the gentlemen, and the friends from beyond the binary to Coalface. I am Stephanie Sabrenskis, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I am Josie Hess, and I am from beyond the binary. I use they, them pronouns.
Woo!
I feel like that intro was very modern.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it too. I was like, whoa, ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary.
I've heard it being like she, he's, and these?
No,
that can't be right. she, hays, and theys?
Maybe, yeah.
So here we are doing a podcast. People always say, I'd like to start a podcast. And we're actually doing a podcast.
I know.
How does that feel?
It feels weird. We've been talking about doing a podcast, like, period, for like years. And we plan to do this one for at least over a year, and we've done so much work and research and getting ready, and now we're in the moment, sitting in this room with this thing between us. Like,
don't forget, it's been like, how long has it been since we've been in a room like properly to do work? Like, because of the pandemic, this is a luxury. I feel like
I can touch your face.
I know,
not that I will,
touch
but
your
yeah,
knees across the aisle.
It's too real.
I think one thing that I'm like so excited to do this episode is try to understand properly what the heck is going on down here, because I feel like I've been, no power pun intended, living in the dark.
That was very funny.
It just came to me.
Yes, indeed. So I feel like I hear words like aquifers, I hear words like
subsidence.
Yeah, subsidence. And I'm trying to think of the actual name for brown coal. It's like Luddite, but not.
Oh, that's
and
good.
It's stuck in my mind. I can't think of it. Lignite.
Ooh, okay.
It's like lignite coal is the proper name for brown coal. May have to corrections corner that. But yeah, I'm hearing all these words, reading things in the paper, and I don't know what.
No, like, I live here. I like the power station. You can almost see peeping over from sort of the end of the street. And, you know, both of us sort of like are used to doing that drive to Morwell, and you can just see that hole kind of looming.
Yeah, so it's the drive-in. Let me set this up.
Set it up. When you come into the valley, what is it like?
Yeah, when you come into the valley, when you're driving towards the town of Morwell in the morning, in the early morning, and it's foggy, it is absolutely surreal. On the one side, on the right, you've got a giant fucking hole in the ground, and there's like random bits of machinery and things sticking up from there, and it's like red and black and grey. It's like a whole host of those earthy rainbow tones. And then up on the left, poking out of the fog like some monolithic monster in the sky, is the power station, like puffing off plumes of smoke. And it's surreal. It overshadows the whole town. It overshadows the whole. And I guess what I like in the morning, and with the fog, you just can't see any nature near it. You can't see anything. It's like just, yeah, it's such a monolith. I can't express that enough.
It is. And I think I didn't really realize how unusual the landscape it was until you kind of leave here. And you're like, oh, you don't grow up with these like huge pylon-y, whatever they call it, like smokes, chimney stack, boiler house things. I remember when we were growing up, like my dad worked in the power stations on and off, and we called them cloud factories.
Oh my God,
because they have
so
like
cute.
those giant plumes of smoke coming out, and like it doesn't look toxic or anything. Like, it's just white, and it looks kind of friendly, and it makes the really pleasant shapes, and you're just like, oh, the cloud factory's popping off today.
I remember really relating to The Simpsons because of the start. Like, that was our childhood.
Totally.
Like, these giant smokestacks or whatever. Fair enough, it's not nuclear power, but it's brown coal power.
Do you remember when you first realized, like, that this was a power area, or like how you got even taught about it?
I don't think I realised how unique the area was. I don't think I realised that, like you said, not every town has a power station right near it. Till I was at least a teenager, I just knew this is what life looked like.
This whole podcast is centred around us being residents of the Latrobe Valley, the valley, lovingly known as the valley, and trying to understand, you know, okay, we have these power stations. It's been the lifeblood of the area. We have a really complicated situation with like workers and environmental groups. You know, what is the plan, and what should we expect for the future?
Absolutely, because I don't know, anyone who's listening to our podcast probably agrees that we can't keep fucking mining coal from the ground. It just can't be done, and it particularly can't be done in this area. It is a completely unsustainable practice. So what is going to happen to the 5.6% of people that are employed by the mines all in our area when there is no more mines to mine and no more power stations to work in? There is no concrete plan from our government to help us out of this. There has been some funding thrown our way, but everyone's working towards a constantly shifting goal. So we need to figure out how everything's going to work, how we're going to make it.
Well, I think that's exactly right. So our plan is to speak to all the people that we've always sort of dreamed of, from the Latrobe Valley to try to get a better understanding about exactly what is the plan, what is the hold up, what could be done better, and what is already happening. I'm just super curious to find out, like, what is it going to look like in 10 years from now?
Really? I am with you. What is it going to look like in 10? What is it going to be in 20? What's it going to be in 50?
We'll be dead by then. We don't have to worry about that.
Maybe. No, I definitely will. I'm definitely middle-aged right now. 33 and ready to go.
That's your Jesus year. Like, that's extremely impressive. Well, I am really excited because today's interview is with Rhonda Hastie, and she is an incredible environmental engineer, but she's also, when we spoke, was the acting CEO of the Land Rehabilitation Authority. And you actually helped set this one up.
Yeah, so I did a series of workshops that Pollyanna, a local artist, put on that were to help people understand what was going on with the mines.
Like a science communicator.
A science communicator, but through art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it was called Coal Hole, and Rhonda hosted one of those, and she was amazing. It was great to see what she had to say.
That makes total sense because she explained things to me in such a clear and concise way. But the place I started, because I'm always really interested about, like, this is not a place that you necessarily choose to go necessarily, right? But Rhonda actually did. So this is her story about how she came to the Valley.
I wanted a pony. A friend of mine, I was working for a consulting firm, and I think I was a bit disillusioned with my role. I felt like I spent a lot of time coming up with clever ways for big companies to sort of negate their risk or their need to clean up certain environmental factors, and I was a bit frustrated with that and feeling a bit disillusioned. And a friend of mine sent me this job advert for a technical specialist for the Office of the Mine Rehabilitation Commissioner, and it was really, and when I read the advert, I was like, that is me. They want to hire me. They wanted someone with good technical skills who could interpret technical information, distill it down into communicatable forms, and really help people understand the issues, bring them together, coalesce ideas, get people moving in the right direction technically. And the position was in Gippsland, and I really wanted to get a horse. I grew up with horses, and I hadn't had a horse for years, and I'd been riding my mum's poor old horse who thought he was in retirement until I decided I wanted to get back into riding. And so I saw this job and I thought, Gippsland, I can have a horse and I can have this job, and this job is made for me. And that's how I ended up out here in beautiful Moe South. You know, in engineering, if you want to do interesting work, you generally have to be willing to travel to where the interesting projects are. I think my mum knew I wanted to get a horse. You know, she's very supportive of that life goal.
Horse is a life goal.
I like that.
Yes.
Like, you're writing a character, you're like, okay, what is their central motivation?
Horse! Yeah!
I think, like, it's really interesting, like, I'll play next for you, like, her sort of origin to how she became an environmental engineer, because that's not, like, you know, a typical career path necessarily, especially if you know, horses, I guess maybe horses to environmental energy. That makes sense.
I can see that for
you. So she's, this is her story about how she, you know, gets to there.
I think I have absolutely zero free will. So when my mum's a French teacher and my dad was a ship's engineer. So he was actually a fitter and turner and worked his way up to being the head engineer in the boiler rooms of the ships in Merchant Navy. So when I was a kid, like, engineering and French was sort of all that was talked about. And so when I went to uni, I studied engineering and French, and actually did a year of my degree in France as well as part of that. So I was very much just thought, well, that's what you do. You know, I never really thought about it, but also I just naturally love it. I love the fact that engineering is about problem solving. It's about taking the science and actually turning it into something, you know, a building or a bridge or a wetland. You know, you're actually trying to solve problems and help people and build solutions. And even with software, you know, it's the same thing. And I love that about engineering. And I think I was just really lucky that I found my niche.
Oh my God, I love that. I wish someone wanted me to be an engineer. My dad wanted my brother to be an engineer, but not me. I don't know what he wanted me to do, but...
Podcasting, probably.
Podcasting, definitely.
I love the idea of that sort of pipeline, but I guess I'm also interested in the fact that she said she felt like no free will.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I was fixated on that too, because I was like, if having no free will leads me to live in France for a year, learn French and do engineering.
Just go with the flow.
How is that a bad thing? If someone told me they're an environmental engineer, I don't know how well I could hold up my end of the conversation, but I'd certainly be interested.
I know, I'd be like, and what does that mean?
Yes, please tell me what you do. And to have this job, I'm so interested in this.
It's so cool. So, you know, how does someone become an environmental engineer? I got super hooked on that idea, and I found out that she actually grew up in the Yarra Valley, which wasn't sort of like as fancy as it is now. Her dad, who was also an engineer, ended up taking a job in a water treatment plant, and she actually said the words, "I am a huge fan of water treatment," which I'd never heard anyone be like that passionate about that before, but like that, I thought that was really interesting. I'm always so impressed when people are like, just able to say out loud, I'm this thing. Like, I struggled with saying I'm an artist for like 5,000 years. So the fact that someone's just like, I'm an environmental engineer, I'm like always so interested about how their identities are so like tied into the yeah.
I have to list like 10 different things, and then there's
caveats.
Still some.
Yeah, you're like, oh, not. I mean, kind of.
Like what was my original multidisciplinary and creative? I don't know. Anyway, general purpose artist or general purpose creative.
That's right, creatrix.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, so I think with someone like Rhonda, who has this like really sort of like, you know, as we meet her now, has this really sort of defined sense of self, and I was really curious about how her identity was tied into her job, and she actually told me about an experience that she had that really solidified that for her.
I remember once I was I don't want to sound like a travel wanker, but once I was in San Francisco and we were visiting some friends who were playing a game in the car, and she was like, oh, just describe your identity, and people were sort of putting these words out there, and I just said environmental engineer. Like, that's me. I'm a solutions person. My partner hates it when he's like, I just want to rant. I don't want solutions. Okay, okay, it's fine, rant. But I'm also very much into the environment and, really care about having a tangible impact on improving that for the future. I think that's why I do really love my job at the moment, and the project I get to work on is because I feel like I am actually having a tangible impact. Like, my aim is to provide a really good outcome for the community here.
Doesn't that just set up exactly who Rhonda is?
Yes, we've got likes horses, passionate about the environment, cycles, environmental engineer, and learnt French. Yes. Fell asleep a lot in French class.
Yeah. I like we stand a sleepy environmental engineer.
Yes, passionate about water treatment.
Yeah. So I think now that we have a sense of who Rhonda is, I was really interested about the work that she does. And I know that as residents living down here, we sort of struggle a little bit to just be like, what exactly is happening? So the next thing I asked her about is like, because she just gave me a summary of what's going on down here, and she painted me this really clear picture.
I guess that the short version is that up until 2017, when Hazelwood shut, the Latrobe Valley provided 80% of the state's electricity through brown coal fired power stations. And so brown coal was dug directly from the pits into the power stations, and now part of the energy transition, those power stations are starting to shut down. Now, they're shutting down because they're getting to the point where they're an aging piece of infrastructure. Those power stations can't work forever. The reason the mines are closing is because we're transitioning away from brown coal as an energy source. It's whether or not you believe in climate change, brown coal is not economic. A new power station is not economically viable compared to renewables. They've just become so much cheaper, and so that's one of the reasons they're not being replaced. The interesting thing about Latrobe Valley is that you've got 3 mines within 30 kilometres. So across the valley, you've got these 3 mines in close proximity. And our brown coal in particular, is not very stable. It takes a lot of effort to stabilise these mines. It can catch fire, as we had the fire at Hazelwood in 2014. And we've had a lot of floods, especially at your Lawn mine in particular. There's been several events where the mine has flooded, and there was even a cracking this year in the river diversion there, which caused it to be shut down for a couple of days. So the problem going forward is how do we change the landscape? How do we transition 80% of the state's electricity? I think it's now maybe more around 60%, from this valley to other renewable less carbon intensive sources. And the other part of the problem is, well, what do we do about these brown coal pits that without careful management can have issues, and because they're co-located with towns and infrastructure like railway lines, freeways, etc., can then directly impact on that infrastructure. So there's sort of two parts of it. My role focuses on, well, what specifically do we do with the pit and the physical infrastructure? And there's a lot of other people looking at how do we actually transition this? How do we provide people with jobs in the future? How do we retrain people? How do we continue to use the energy transmission infrastructure in the valley? Even though the Latrobe Valley is the climate here isn't the best for solar or wind compared to, say, northwestern Victoria, we already have all the power infrastructure, and that's expensive to install. And so the power transition does need to happen down here because we've got that infrastructure available. It actually makes it cheaper to use it here. So how does that happen? What does that look like? How do we sort of deal with some of the legacy issues around, the unemployment that stemmed from SECs, privatisation and redundancies and etc. So I'm not sure if that's quite the summary you were looking for, or...
I feel like that's the summary everybody needs to hear, personally.
Isn't that the clearest that you've ever heard it laid out?
And so many people I've spoken to are like, we can just keep mining the mine. Let's keep on getting the brown coal out. But it's not a physical possibility. It's just not.
Yeah. I think having someone explicitly state the difference is that it's brown coal and it's less stable. I had never, living here my whole life, heard that explicitly stated. I did not know.
Well, I had from the coal hole workshops and from my interest in the Latrobe Valley history, but I can totally understand that.
You just miss it. I feel, unless you're I don't know. I did not realize that it was such a different engineering problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that it was the first brown coal mine outside of Germany in the world as well. And the German coal mines and these ones are very different because ours go out. They're shallow, which I'm sure Rhonda will tell everybody about later.
She does.
Yeah, good. But everyone needs to know that the brown coal is mostly moisture.
Yeah.
It is not transportable. We can't send it offshore. It's no good to anyone. And that it takes constant maintenance to keep the town from falling into the mine.
What do you call it? Cohabitat or something?
Yes.
That's a very coexisting, it's just a conscious decoupling type of
It is,
it's a very kind or euphemistic way of being the town is teetering on the edge of the coal mine.
Yes, they're cohabitating with each other. We are in bed with the mine.
Yeah. It always makes me think kind of like an apple core, and the town is it's we're eating away at the sides, and that can't be good.
No, it definitely can't be good.
It can't be good.
Yeah.
Let's ask an expert who will clarify why it can't be good.
Yes. What other wisdom has Rhonda got for us?
I mean, in terms of actual mines, they're not the biggest, but they are really big pits, and I'm trying to actually remember what the actual dimensions are. But if you look at Loy Yang mine, which is meant to close in 2048, so at the moment they're planning on still mining it for another 27 years. Whether or not that happens, I think that's unlikely, but it's at its deepest, it's over 200 metres deep, and the widest section of that mine is 2 kilometres across, and it's only about half the size now, I think, probably a bit more than half, but it's going to expand substantially if they mine all the way up until 2048. So that's a really big pit. When we talk about water volumes in terms of equivalent water volumes, we talk about needing about 3,000 billion litres of water to rehabilitate these pits, which the scientific unit for pit filling is apparently Sydney Harbours. So it's the equivalent to 5.5 Sydney Harbours. I guess to try and put it in some sort of perspective, I've got a water tank on my shed here, and that's 20 kilolitres, so that's 20,000 litres, and that's enough that would probably be enough for our whole house, but at the moment it just does the garden and the water troughs, etc. So that's in the scale of thousands. And then we're talking billions, which is, a million times that little tank on my shed. So it's really hard to put something so big into perspective for people, because unless you've actually stood in the bottom of Loy Yang mine and looked up at that 200-metre wall of coal and sort of gone, whew, that collapsing would not be a good outcome, or that catching fire would be very stressful. It's really hard for people to imagine it. When people do drive along the freeway, I really encourage people to actually look and don't crash your car when you're doing this. But if you have a passenger, look into Hazelwood, because the freeway is right there, and it's cracked in the past because of some drainage issues associated with the mine and the water drain that runs south of the freeway. And the pit is right there, right on the edge of the freeway, and you can look into it. And at the moment, they've done a lot of work at the moment to reprofile parts of the batters, and they're putting grass vegetation on parts of it to prevent erosion, etc. And I encourage people to look at it at the moment, because this is kind of what it would look like if we didn't fill it with water and turn it into a lake. This is kind of the view that you'd be getting. It would just kind of be dirt and grass and a massive big hole. The coal that's exposed at the moment wouldn't be exposed. They would have to cover that with a material, because otherwise there's a fire risk. But that's what you would see. And so, like, to try and give people an idea of that's what a rehabilitated pit would look like in this context. Yeah, the scale of them is hard. Unless you've actually been out here to see it, you don't really understand it, I don't think.
God damn, every time the cracks in the freeway I mentioned, like, I feel like, do you ever have, there's that, a superstition, so when you go past the graveyard, you like hold your breath and cross your legs or whatever. So good. I feel like, is that necessary now when you're driving across that freeway? Just like, that's how you stop it from...
Hold your breath and close your legs. So did you literally say you close your legs?
Is that what you do? You cross your wings, right? Is that how you do it for What's the graveyard one?
The graveyard is definitely hold your breath, because it's rude to breathe in front of the dead.
I thought it was like about crossing your legs for Jesus. Is that not?
I'm not sure.
Is that just okay? That might be just me, but
I'm not sure.
When we talk about that horrifying cracking freeway, I gotta say that's like nightmarish to me.
It is, and I remember how long it was closed for as well. It was far too long, and that's probably going to happen again and again.
Sounds like it, without proper maintenance. So knowing that type of thing goes on, I wanted to find out from Rhonda just how, is this unique, or is this like happening to towns everywhere?
I don't think it's unusual. There's definitely other mines located closely to towns, whether or not those towns sprang up because of the mine, like up in the Hunter Valley around the Newcastle area. They've got a lot of coal mines near communities. Black coal doesn't have the same instabilities as brown coal. So to get into the technical side of things, our brown coal is not very dense. So it's got a density of about 1.1 to 1.3, which means it's about the same weight as water. And it means that our mines are really susceptible to all of the forces from water in the subsurface. And so they just don't have that stability profile that you might have from something like a black coal mine, or from a quarry where you've got like quarried materials like hard rocks, you've got densities of like 2.5 in those sorts of... So you don't have to worry about those stability issues in the same way. I don't think it's necessarily unusual to have them so close, but I think now when we're planning new mines, because mining will continue, we need materials for, metal, the materials that we make our phones from, copper, nickel, zinc, gold, etc. We will continue to mine those, even coal, to create steel. At the moment, there are some hydrogen trials in creating steel from using hydrogen as opposed to coal, but they're very early phases. So even if we stop burning coal for power generation, we'd still be using it for steel production. I think we've just learnt not to put the mines so close to communities because of these issues. There are mines in Germany that are bigger than our mines here, and they dig up brown coal, but their brown coal is slightly different. It's slightly denser, and also they have to take out a lot more, overburden material. So the material that sits above the coal, like the soil and everything that sits above the coal, is called overburden, and they have to take out about 5 times as much of that to reach the coal than we do here. So their mining is kind of like an overburden management efficiency exercise, as opposed to here, we don't have much overburden, so it really is a coal mining exercise. And so there's so much coal, and the holes are so deep, and there's these massive big, like at your lawn, you have 80-metre thick seams, uninterrupted seams of coal that you don't see elsewhere in the world. And that makes it just a little bit more difficult when it comes to the actual rehabilitation side of things.
Wow. With that description, 80-metre thick parts of coal. I wondered what it's like to be actually inside the mine.
Oh, well, you are in luck because has Rhonda been in the coal hole? Yes, she has.
Oh, yes! I can't wait.
It's really funny. I think I said this earlier that I never really imagined as an environmental engineer that I would be like excited about coal. I sort of thought I would come out here and I'd have a really hard time talking to the mine licensees because I was sort of like naively thinking, evil brown coal miners, you know, they mustn't believe in climate change and, you know, they'll be really difficult to talk to. Like, I couldn't be more wrong, you know, lovely bunch of people, very much, you know, I don't have met anyone who's a climate denier, but obviously they have a job to do and a service and electricity to provide, etc. But I have actually stood in your lawn mine and looked at this like 80 metre thick seam of coal and gone sort of, wow, that's actually quite beautiful. And I never thought I would actually think about coal as being beautiful, but from a geological perspective, it really is. If you think about where it came from and how it's come from, like organic material that's been compressed and heated and solidified over time, you know, because this whole area used to be peat, like these sort of bogs and swamps and peat bogs, and that's what helped create the coal. And you just think about how you've got like this like uninterrupted geological cross section. From that perspective, it's actually really, you know, you're looking at millions of years of, you know, geological work and there. And so from that perspective, it's actually really I find it really quite exciting. Probably unusual in that respect. The mines themselves, I mean, I think it's just, when you go in there, they're so big, it's just like going into any other kind of like, it's just like going into a town or a society or anything. They have their little tea rooms everywhere. They have everyone in their cars moving around. They've got their bits of equipment doing their thing, pipes and electricity transition wires. It's really just like going into any other kind of town, although it's a bit more of a sort of bleak industrial sort of lunar landscape as opposed to a nice green area. Because it is so big, as soon as you get into the bottom of the mine, you're looking like several kilometres to the other end of the mine, and it's actually really quite large. And they've actually placed there's a lot of vegetation in it, and there's all these water bodies and water management areas, and it's actually really quite green and lush in places, and it's quite a different experience. So you're like, oh, well, they used to mine here, and it's a good, it's not rehabilitated by, you know, in terms of final rehabilitation or anything like that, but it is a nice, I guess, little pocket of sort of saying, oh yeah, you can create something, you can dig out the coal and then you can place soil back in there, and you can recreate vegetation, and it's not as lush and beautiful as I potentially describe it, but compared to just having like coal under your feet, it's, you know, polar opposite, I guess.
I have got this movie in my head from that last comment. What's that movie? I want to say Airheads, but it's not. It's either got the same person in it, but they have a dome world.
Oh my god, BioWorld!
BioWorld!
Is that like, it's like, hey bud.
Yes!
Who's that guy? What's that guy's name?
I don't remember.
Pauly Shore,
yeah, that's it.
Shit.
I'm just like, it just makes me think of there's like this biodome in the middle of the actual coal mine with all this beautiful stuff.
The idea, though, she was describing it as like a bleak little town.
Yeah.
But I can't, like, it's so hard. Like, you drive past it and you know things that are kind of like in the distance that look kind of surreal.
Yeah.
Like your eyes are like, nope, can't accept that. That doesn't look quite real.
That's
I think
right.
that's why like you can see it, but maybe you don't really understand fully how big it is, even though you're looking at it.
Same. Like, I know often I see big cranes or dredges, not cranes, it's dredges with the big cup. The big thing on them, and I see like this red, and I see a little bit of black and like some grey, but that could be 80 meters wide. Like, I don't know.
Well, they've got that small one in town as like an example dredger, and when you go up to it, it's, what is that, like 10 stories tall?
It's giant.
It's huge, and apparently that's a small one. So the ones in the actual mine must be like, well, let's find out. Someone will tell us how tall they are.
Maybe.
But they are dredgers.
Yeah.
Nightmare. They look like Gyarados or whatever, that Pokemon.
Yeah,
like, they're terrifying.
Imagine a dredger in a Gyarados costume.
That is like the crossover that we need to see. One thing I hear all the time is rehabilitation. My main context for that is drug rehabilitation. But in the context of this, I think I still am struggling to be like, what exactly do we want / mean by it?
Yeah.
So that was one thing I was really interested to try to understand from her, and she actually gave me a super clear answer.
So in the legislation in Victoria, the bare minimum is a safe, stable and sustainable landform. And I think there's also a caveat in there about having a future land use. So when a mine operator, licensee, starts a mine, they're meant to nominate what the future land use, the post-rehabilitation land use would be, and then rehabilitation is meant to work towards that. Obviously, with legacy mines that have been around for a very long time, that's a bit more difficult because we're actually trying to retrofit the process to the like legislation which has been updated and changed. The aim, I think, it's a bit tricky because at the moment in the Latrobe Valley we don't have a consistent vision yet on what is an appropriate residual risk profile. So even before we get to choosing the ideal landform for these mines, we have to actually say, well, what is the appropriate residual risk? Do we want there to be continuing risks to potential ground strains in Morwell? Do we want there to be continuing risks to the freeway? Do we want to try and mitigate those as far as practicable, to use the sort of engineering term, as much as possible? Do we want to have the lowest residual risk profile, or do we want to have a residual risk where it's sort of middle of the ground and are we happy with a high residual risk which requires a lot of active and ongoing maintenance and monitoring in perpetuity? So that's kind of the first question, and we haven't answered that yet. That really requires input from the state, and that hasn't been answered yet. And so the licensees, based on their interpretation of the legislation around safe, stable and sustainable, they want to go for the safest and the most stable and most sustainable landform. And when we talk about sustainable, a lot of people, it's synonymous, sustainability is synonymous with environmental sustainability. For me, it's about like being maintainable. Can we actually maintain that safety and that stability?
So from that, I take away that there's sort of like, no matter what we do, it's either going to be super expensive and we can get it to a point where it's, relatively low maintenance, low risk profile, or we go medium or to the other end of things where it's like, oh, we have to like consistently maintain this thing or it will catch on fire or slip.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm in two minds about that because, as I whispered to you while we were listening, if there was constant maintenance that needed to be done, then that also creates jobs, because at the moment we're looking at losing a majority of jobs, or not a majority, but a lot of jobs in the valley.
Yeah.
When the coal mines close. So if we did have that higher risk profile, then we would have more work. But at the same time, I would love to just have a stabilized environment, and for it to be able to be made beautiful again, for it to be able to be reclaimed by the earth.
And then everyone could do a nice TAFE course and become like a boat operator or something in 80 years when we're all 100. Yeah, it doesn't. I think from this conversation, what I took away is that there are ideal solutions here, but there's either a financial block or a literal ecological block to getting to that ideal state.
Or our government's just not giving a direction. Imagine that, making a concrete decision about something.
What's going on. Yeah. So I don't want to alarm everybody, but on this podcast, we think that climate change is real.
Yeah, we do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to spook anybody out of here. Totally open to nuanced conversations, etc. and stuff. And I'm not saying, we have to just become, the most extreme greens people or whatever. But we are taking the harsh stance that climate change is a thing, right?
Yeah, and we have to do something about it.
Yeah. Got it. And that's a good thing, right? We should definitely do something about it. So I think, it's all good and well to talk about rehabilitation, but that's sort of all built around the premise that it's the world we know now. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I've noticed certainly in the last, burning fucking few years that things have gotten a little bit worse. And I'm imagining that that's going to maybe get more worse.
Bit burny, bit windy, bit wet.
Bit moist. And it's stuff that I'm not used to. I'm we don't have wetness here. We don't have wind. How dare you?
Bring back the drought.
I miss those standard years of the drought. So yeah, I think I was just all right, so we have rehabilitation as a goal, but how does that actually functionally work when we know things are going to get worse?
Part of the problem is it's sort of slightly ironic, burning brown coal has helped induce climate change, and thanks to climate change we no longer have enough water in our local river system to fill these pits with water. The plan has always been to create pit lakes, even when the SEC was in control of them, was always to create a pit lake. But the problem is now we don't necessarily have enough water from the local system to do that. So we could bring in an external water supply, so we could build a desalination plant on the coast and pipe in the water, but that costs billions of dollars. And who has to pay for that? Is it the licensee who was sold a project on the assumption that they would get their water through their current power station bulk entitlements? Or is it the government that pays for that, but then they have to take those billions of dollars away from another project for the state? So whose responsibility is that, and what residual risk profile do we want? Are we happy with a mine that isn't in full equilibrium, requires ongoing maintenance and management, knowing that, yeah, we probably have some kind of slip or failure in the future, but we're happy to deal with that. We're happy to just patch it up when the time comes? Or do we want a fully equalised mine where the chance of having a failure in the future is very low? So, for example, if Hazelwood at the moment is likely to finish its rehabilitation first because it closed first, making sure that they're still managing all those regional risks so it doesn't impact on your Lorne mine, which is quite nearby, if they're still mining or while they're going through their rehabilitation phase.
I just want to pause for a second and touch on the word slip, because a slip in the instance of this mine that is next to the town means the town will slip into the mine, which is absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
But slip is also like a little whoopsie.
Just a little slip. My nightmare is the slipping. Like, I used to live along the edge bit.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, you think about it, you're like, I wonder what would happen if...
Well, I lived in a house on Wallace Street, which backs onto the mine as well. And I was living there when they actually noticed that it was moving. And from my recollection, it's moved like 2 meters.
Yeah, it's meters. It's not just a couple centimeters, it's like meters.
No, that's more than sea level rising. Like, that's, the sea level.
I hope you like being on like a mountain view, because you will maybe be on a mountain.
Maybe they should just start trying to sell the real estate in Morwell as mountain, future mountain.
Coalview. Right.
Yeah, but Coalview Drive, that sounds pretty fancy.
And like maybe they can start selling it on the idea that it's going to be a future lake, so they can be like, look, this will be waterfront property at some point.
This is going to be prime real estate. Not now, but your
maybe
grandkids
in 80
benefits
years.
Galore.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think I understand Rhonda's position and why she has to put it in those terms.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm super curious about, because it's like, I want to know, what do we mean exactly?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't sound great.
And also, I want to be able to unpack what is the language of coal mining then. Like, everything has its own vernacular.
It does,
And a word like a term like slip and the way it's being used there. And I believe it was residual risk portfolio.
Residual risk management?
Residual risk management.
Yeah.
Like, that's an interesting collection of words to me as well.
It? Yeah.
And I guess the more we do this podcast and the more people we speak to, we'll have all these different languages to
Maybe
learn
we can
things
start a glossary.
from. Oh, a glossary. I was going to try and glossary. No, that sounds like a colostomy bag.
But yeah, I think terms like that, I mean, I think the root of it sounds like ongoing, we have to forever take care of the mine.
Yeah, we do. Like,
or it will slip.
It will slip, and that could have who knows what untold consequences.
Yeah.
But I'm really on board of this idea of creating a glossary of terms for people, because even reading The Express, reading The Age, The Express is our local newspaper, but yeah, what do they mean? I read them and I'm like, I get that word, but in this context, maybe I don't know as much as I think I know. Yeah.
What about the Coladex?
Coladex! Oh, I love it. I love it. Can we spell it like Coalerer?
Oh, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Dex. Like, that's great. Let's do it.
Okay.
Sold.
Look out for it on the website. We don't have a website.
Sorry.
So I'm glad now that we've had the genius idea of the Coladex. You can look that up on our non-existent website. We'll get one eventually. Follow us on Instagram, Life After Coal. But, okay, I was pretty concerned about that phrase slip, so I did ask her to clarify. Here is Rhonda explaining the definition of a slip.
There's a few different things that can happen with the mines. One is that when you're mining, so the batter is the wall of the mine, essentially. So when you're mining, you've got your mining front progresses along the batter, and that batter, I kind of think of it as sort of like sighing. It sort of relaxes a bit, and this sort of strain happens where it sort of flexes inwards into the pit a bit, and we get these ground strain movements. Now, those ground strains can open up cracks in the coal, and then water can infiltrate into those cracks and build up pressure. And unless we relieve that pressure, we can end up with like a small small slip of coal can be really small. We can end up with a really large block sliding event, like happened at your lawn in 2007. Massive coal block got pushed by the river into the pit, and that's how the river flooded the pit, was because it pushed, the pressure just built up. There was a big flood, pressure built up, and it pushed that whole coal block into the mine. Or you can just have like little cracks and strains. So like that cracking and straining can move further back. So that's what happened at Hazelwood in the freeway in, I always forget which year it was, 2012 or something, I think it was about, when there was cracking noticed in the freeway because of this water pressure build up from the Morwell main drain that runs along the edge of the freeway. The drain wasn't lined, and so it was infiltrating water into the coal, the cracks in the coal, and that caused the whole thing to crack. So there's a whole lot of management around that in terms of making sure that when we're mining, they essentially, if you think about it like squeezing a Prima, like a juice box, and then you stab it, if you got your Prima sideways and you stab it with your straw, water comes sort of flying, will come flying out of it. It's the same kind of thing. We put horizontal bores into the sides of the coal batters, into the walls of the mine, and they drain all the water that collects within, like behind the batter, to make sure that water pressure can't build up. We also, like for example at your lawn, have a whole lot of levees in place to keep surface water outside the mine, to direct it around the mine to make sure that it can't build up in the first place. At Hazelwood, they've lined the drain to make sure that water can't build up. So there's a whole lot of management, surface water management, that goes into making sure that those batters don't fail, or that the ground strains don't become excessive, etc. That your rehabilitation is about trying to stop those cracks opening up, stop the water pressure building up, or if you filled it up with water, for example, or rather putting in an equalising force so that if the water pressure or built up, it can't, the batter itself can't move, the coal can't actually move. And so that's why we want to fill them with, why the licensees would prefer to fill them with water, because you're essentially putting an equal and opposing force on those batters to stop those potential failures.
Wow. Okay.
I was dying for your opinion on the Prima box.
Okay, so right now I feel like there's some angry child holding a Prima box in a schoolyard and squeezing it and putting the straw in, and it's just gonna fucking explode.
Yeah, it's very visceral.
Then I had like a little rejig in my mind, and I was like, cool, it's an expert squeezing the Prima box gently with an expertly inserting the straw. And then I actually kind of got why they want to put the water in it, because have you ever used a garden hose in a backyard and you put it in to the bucket of water and it fills more slowly than it would if you're holding it out, because it's an equal and opposing force. Like it doesn't have the pressure, but it either completely stops filling or it blocks it and slowly puts it in. So that analogy took me to a lot of places, right back to my childhood, which helped me get why a pit lake is a good idea.
Yeah. It does sound like, again, if we can resolve the, lack of water situation, that it would be the best possible outcome. I mean, all of this does just sound like the start of a, ecological disaster movie where it's like the scientists are trying to tell people, and like, hey, we have to keep doing this thing, and then like no one's listening to them, and then a fire or a collapse happens. I mean, part of me thinks it's like this thing of it's so, when it's even when it's thrust in your face, if you're not having to deal with it every day, having to deal with it is too much emotionally or something, so you're just kind of like, I'm sure someone's taking care of it.
Yeah, the same
And I mean,
thing.
obviously people like Rhonda are taking care of it.
And thank fuck, because Rhonda makes me feel safe.
Yes, Rhonda is keeping all of us safe. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you,
But
Rhonda,
I wonder what happens if the funding runs out, or if they don't properly... it seems like a lot of things could go wrong here.
There is, and not to bring the government into it too much again, but I do not have the highest faith in the current government.
Yeah.
So I feel if we got somebody like at the top who could at least acknowledge climate change as a possibility, that would be
great.
Helpful, and I'd feel more secure. But yeah, if the money stops, if people stop caring, that's fucked. Imagine if everyone just stopped caring.
The Prima box situation would be terrible.
Angry child returns.
Yeah.
So we've discussed a lot of different ways we could go about doing the rehab.
That's what we'll call it from now.
27 days in and out or something, inpatient, outpatient. But what is going to be the safest for the area? And I guess the safety isn't all about whether it's going to catch fire. It isn't about if it's going to fall in. Like, safety also includes the economy and all these other factors. But Rhonda is the environmental scientist here. So did Rhonda say anything about what is the safest option for the valley?
She did. And unfortunately, like most things in life, it's not a simple solution.
The safest and most stable landform that can be maintained in perpetuity quite easily is a full pit lake, because if you fill up that pit with enough water, you create that ballast to counteract all those forces coming in from outside of the mine. It sits in equilibrium, and most of the issues that you have around stabilising these mines are gone. There's still some issues, like, you know, our landform isn't dead flat. It's not like you're filling up a bath all the way to the brim. Some parts of the mine are higher than others, so you will still have some exposed coal in places, but the risk from that is vastly minimised compared to if you had an empty pit and you were just continuing to manage it. That's why the licensees are proposing that. But the problem is, at the moment, the regulator can't approve that, because they can't guarantee, the licensees can't guarantee that they have the water to achieve that outcome. So the licensees need to be able to say, yes, I can achieve that outcome. And in order to do that, they need to have proof that they've got enough water to do it. And at the moment, they don't have that proof because of this, the modelling suggesting that water within the Latrobe system is declining, and that there's a bit of like legal issues as well around the bulk entitlements that the power stations currently use is allocated to power generation, not mine rehabilitation. So they'd have to reapply for a new bulk entitlement, and if they did that, there'd be different conditions placed on it, which is fine, but there wouldn't necessarily be the same guarantee of water what they currently get for power generation, which means they can't, if we have a drought year or if we have another millennium drought, they're not going to have necessarily enough water to achieve that rehabilitation outcome. So then we might end up with a higher residual risk outcome, end up with a partial pit lake, and the residual risk would be higher, and that's not what everyone signed up to. So at the moment, it's trying to work out, you know, before we can't put the cart before the horse. We can't say, okay, we're happy with this landform until we really understand, well, what risk profile are we really happy with? Do we really want to go for that safest, most stable, sustainable landform? I think we should, because I think that really will give us the best outcome. You limit your future land use options by going not just within the mine, but also the areas surrounding the mine licence as well, by going for anything less. So I think we should go for that. But now the question, and this is what government's looking at, is as part of their regional strategy is, well, if we're going to go for that, how do we do it? Where do we get the water from? Can we actually source it from the Latrobe River? So the regional strategy team are looking at what could they, you know, they've been modelling water resources in the Latrobe system and saying, well, could we take it without impacting other users? Because that's important as well. Because the licensees could take all the water they wanted to, but you don't want to impact the other users in the system. You know, we've got irrigators downstream, you've got the the environmental condition of the wetlands, etc. So need to protect those as well. Or if we brought the water in from somewhere else, say a desalination plant, how much is that going to cost? Where could that desalination go? How much water could it supply? And then the next phase of that would be working out, well, who could pay for it? Who would, is lowering the cost, is lowering the risk worth paying for that piece of infrastructure? It's unlikely, I think, that the licensees would want to pay for that infrastructure by themselves. That, it is a significant investment.
So it sounds to me like the Land Rehabilitation Authority and, specifically Rhonda really do have the best intentions and have actually, got some pretty concrete plans. But it kind of sounds like in terms of the state government, and I hope to learn more about this, but there does seem like a little bit of bureaucracy in the way.
Yeah, the hold up is at the top, higher up than here. There is a plan. Everyone knows what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So
can we have some money, please?
Yeah.
We should start an OnlyFans for...
An OnlyFans.
Mine OnlyFans.
GoFundMe.
Yeah, GoFundMe. It's $1 billion.
Or what about sexy coal mold.
We should really, every year we could release like a sexy coal
Yeah.
calendar, and it's just like sexy coal.
Yes, we'll do, instead of guns, we'll have lumps of coal. We can hold them over our
Nothing
nips.
more erotic than like some moist and unstable coal.
So moist.
Well, one thing I noticed is that there, okay, it's all fine for things to be locked in bureaucratic, in perpetuity, except when you consider the fact that climate change is around and like maybe gonna make things worse. So this is what Rhonda had to say about like, there is like a time limit on this.
I just want to just touch quickly on the climate change thing, because the other thing that's really important to notice is that climate change is going to make us the climate more extreme. So we're not just going to have drier periods, we're going to have wetter periods as well. And I worry in the future, when the authority becomes a landowner, of how we're going to deal with, for example, if we had an empty pit and we're managing it as the mines manage their pits now in a sort of care and maintenance type scenario, we've covered the coal, etc., but we're still doing all the water management processes. I worry that we're going to get to a period where we've had a 10-year drought and we've gotten a bit complacent in how we deal with water, and all of a sudden we have a really wet year, and all of a sudden we're faced with a major mine failure because we've forgotten what it's like to deal with water. And that is a real risk. That is something that we really need to think about going forward. So in climate change, it's not just about decreasing water supplies, it's about that change of extremes and making sure that we're prepared for those, and also understanding what potentially could be those extremes, because I don't think we've actually even seen what they fully, what they could be in the future. And that's an important, it's a bit of a known unknown, to use that sort of way to describe it.
Hopefully, if we have people like Rhonda looking after this, like Rhonda self-identified as an environmental engineer, and if we have people like Rhonda on board, that makes me feel positive and hopeful and good. Like, Rhonda loves her job and loves what she's doing, and she's been so illuminating in this. So let's fucking hope everyone who's in a position of research and advocating for change is a Rhonda.
Yeah, we need more Rhondas.
Yeah.
Although it sounds like my one illuminating fact for me was just the fact that maybe there are more people who are, on board, that the climate is changing and that we are thinking about these things. And I suppose like that's what we can discover across the rest of this podcast is like, who else is out there doing this work and that maybe we haven't heard of? What is the plan? Like, what is going on?
I really want to talk to somebody about the actual water situation, because I know there is opposition to filling the pit lake because of a lack of water and upsetting the water table in Gippsland and the Morwell River. Yep. So hopefully we can get someone who's an expert in water to come and talk to us.
Yeah. It's that thing again of like, nothing is easy. There's always complexity and nuance to it. And Rhonda said it, like there isn't a clear winning answer here.
I don't know. So far, I feel maybe the hold-up is the government. I don't know. It seems like they're not making a clear decision on...
Hey, there's elections coming up, Steph. What are they supposed to do?
Talk about something important? No. Fuck no.
Yeah.
So, but from that end, like, I feel good. I feel good about the Mine Rehabilitation Authority and the work they're doing, and even just the acknowledgement that the community need to be involved, because I feel like here and on, watching Insight about other coal towns, watching Q&A about other coal towns, that seems to be across the board that communities don't feel like they're being consulted.
Yeah, in a meaningful way, right? Like, I think sometimes it's sort of like, this is what's going on. They throw you a bone, but it's like, no, but honestly, like, what is my life going to be like if there's a giant lake, 10 minutes from my house? Like,
what does it mean for the next generation and the generation and the generation and the generation after that?
And then climate change.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot. On that positive note, I really wanted to ask Rhonda what her hopes for the future are.
Been thinking about a lot this recently, and my hope really is just that whatever decision is made, it's made with a good solid understanding of what are the implications of that decision. So whatever residual risk we end up with, everybody knows that is why we have chosen that residual risk. And that then flows on to, well, we've chosen that residual risk, so we're then going to choose this landform which fits that residual risk, and based on that landform we can have these future land uses. So my hope for the future is really making sure that the community in particular really understands and knows why certain decisions have been made, and also ideally that they have been consulted as part of those decisions as well. That's part of the authority's job, but it's also up to the licensees and other government departments to actually go out there and talk to community groups as well. In this situation, there's not necessarily a clear winner of an outcome. It is a wicked problem, but as part of that, we need to just make sure that everybody knows, understands why have these decisions been made, and what are the implications of those decisions.
So we totally just Googled what a wicked problem is, because I just thought she was being like, that's a wicked problem, but it's actually like a term, which I will insert the audio for what that is here. In planning and policy, a wicked problem is a problem that is difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements that are often difficult to recognise. It sounds shit.
I'm glad that Rhonda is so focused on having the community involved and understand the decision. And I think that's what Coal Hole, the workshop I mentioned earlier, was all about, was communicating to people in a different way using art. Because you can't just have some dude on a podium talking at you for an hour in a language that you don't understand and expect to know what's going on.
Totally. It has to be accessible, right? Like, give it to me in a format, like, if it's not a sketch comedy, I ain't listening.
Or this podcast.
Also this podcast. Well, that is our inaugural episode. If you liked what you heard today, tell a friend. Because we would like to reach more people to explain more coal business.
We would. And I just want to reiterate as well, come learn with us, because we are learning everything as much as we can on the ground from as many perspectives as we can. So yeah, we're learning, you're learning, hopefully. So
come learn with us.
Yeah, come learn with us. That's our new tagline.
Come learn with us on Coalface.
Yes. The music for Coalface is by Anonymous 420 and Loyalty Freak Music.
Thank you again to our guest Rhonda Hastie for being so generous with your time.
The series is written, edited and produced by Josie Hess and Stephanie Zabrinskis.
If you like what you heard, find us on social media at Life After Coal on Instagram, or send us an email to coalfacepodcast@gmail.com.
Look out for the next episode of Coalface.